So, hello everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Tanoto Foundation Unlocking Potential podcast series. So, my name is Inge Kusuma, as introduced before. I'm the country head of Tanoto Foundation Indonesia. So, why this episode is very special? Because this is the first time Tanoto Foundation's Unlocking Potential podcast is recorded in the live audience. In this event, UNESCO Youth as Researchers and Tanoto Scholars Research Awards Knowledge Summit 2024. So we are excited. We are very excited to be here. And in this room, we are joined by perhaps more than 200 young, brilliant minds, young researchers from many few universities, top universities in Indonesia. I'm very honored today. I would like to welcome our distinguished guest, Ibu Maki Katsuno-Hayashikawa, the Director and Representative of UNESCO Office in Indonesia. So, Ibu Maki, it's wonderful to have you. Thank you for taking your time to be here. I just learned that Ibu Maki just returned from a trip yesterday, and yet she's making herself available to meet all of us here. So before we start, we learned a lot what UNESCO has been doing and has been very instrumental in empowering young researchers like yourself, not only in Indonesia, also globally. And that's why we are here. So we would love to learn more your insights, Ibu Maki. Let's start with general big picture questions. So the first questions to you: how is UNESCO helping to equip young people with the skills and resources to thrive as successful researchers and make meaningful contributions to the society?
Ibu, and good afternoon, everyone. And a great pleasure to be here in front of you on a live studio, I would say, or live on stage. For us in UNESCO, we actually refer to this World Youth Report, which actually was published in 2020, so it's already 4 years ago. But I think that some of the data still are very valid. According to this report, we have about 1.2 billion young people aged 15 to 24 years old, so it's really about your age group. That's about 16%, 16% of the global population. It means that we have a very important young population in the world that we need to invest. Usually we see that, young people are very resourceful, very intelligent, very creative, innovative. They're doing amazing work around the world, and we think, we believe in the power of youth as change agents, leading the fight for clean planet, for example, for climate action, and anything that they're passionate about, like also including human rights. Now, youth is also a global priority group for UNESCO's programs. So youth is always kind of mainstream across all the program and project and activities we do in UNESCO. We really like to support young people to kind of, nurture and foster and strengthen their creativity, innovation, and capacity so that they can be the change agent to make changes happen in the world. And we also think that you, not only as like future leaders, because we say you are the future leader, but you're also leaders of today, and the activities that you do through the research work that you have been doing, you are already demonstrating a strong leadership to try to change this world by giving strong recommendations that we could also pass on further to policy people. And UNESCO is very proud to be accompanying the young people like you're all. Now, it's also nothing new to us. For UNESCO, we've been working with young people probably over 20 years. And we have been supporting initiatives and networks, strengthening youth capacities. So we've been always, engaged in this work. But every time we engage with new group of young people, because of course, you will soon, 10 years later, you'll be older than now. So you have the next generation coming up. And we find, every generation comes with wonderful ideas, which will be helping us, not in the future, not in the past, but also the future in both ways. So that's wonderful. It's we have many activities we would like to share, but I think time will be a little bit limited. So let me stop here and people can also ask questions later on.
So you heard the numbers that 1.2 billion young people is the number we can't just ignore. It's a huge number. Right? And then UNESCO actually has provided a lot of platforms for the young people and help shape them to be the leaders of the future, to be the leaders of tomorrow. So I think you've mentioned briefly, collaboration is also important. So then speaking of that impactful collaborations, the Tanoto Student Research Awards, as everybody knows, as part of our Teladan program, has joined forces with UNESCO to localize this YAR, Youth as Researchers program in Indonesia. So Maki, the question is, how does this collaboration create more impact? And then what are your hopes for the future partnerships?
We're very proud. UNESCO is very proud to be partnering, and collaborating with Tanoto Foundation. And this is actually our second consecutive year working together. And yes. And of course, focusing on Indonesia as youth researchers chapter. Now, I think we are the only UN agency that works with Tanoto Foundation. And we know that other UN agencies, our sister agencies, work very closely with you. But together, we really underscore our common goals and values, putting together how youth researchers can really lead the discussions in the policy avenues. I know that you are already working with UNDP, which is another UN agency, and the Indonesia SDG Academy, together with Bappenas, the ministry here. Now, we are very proud and happy to be working for the second year with Tanoto Foundation, because we also believe that Tanoto Foundation shares so much, commitment in investing in the youth capacity, which of course UNESCO does as well. And I think because we have partners together through this Youth as Researchers and project, as well as combining with our Tanoto Student Research Awards, so you call it the YAR-TSRA, yes, that we can amplify the impact of the two activities together. I think, it's by putting the two programs together, we're also kind of expanding our reach at the local level as well. We think that's the success of partnership is really to acknowledge our local reach and also bringing this up to the global level as well. Also, I think it's been a great pleasure and honor working with your colleagues, your team, that they also bring a lot of valuable insights in the entire process of this research project. And, because, of course, Undra and myself, we're not Indonesians, we're not nationals here. We come here to support the work with you, but I think we always need the local knowledge and, experiences which we cannot bring. And we really appreciate Tanoto's colleagues for giving that additional support to the young researchers here in front of us.
Thank you, Maki. You're absolutely right. We've been working with other UN agencies as well. So we've been working with not only UNESCO, with UNDP, as you mentioned, for SDG Academy, with UNICEF, with WHO. But I guess this is one of the most successful partnerships we have with UN agencies. So we are very pleased. Building on this successful partnership, I think we both agree. The next step is how to explore ways to strengthen this collaborations with higher education institutions to ensure these programs will be sustainable and continue to grow. How do you think we can strengthen collaborations with higher education institutions to better support these young researchers with the academic and practical trainings that they need?
Of course, UNESCO works with higher education a lot, within this project, but also beyond. I come from education sector, so this is also one of the areas that I'm very familiar with. But I think we tend to also kind of ignore or kind of undermine the power of higher education institutions, how they can directly contribute to policy making and changing a setting direction for the government, for example, or for the public. But of course, universities cannot do alone, the job on their own. They have their students who are the biggest assets that higher education institutions have. Higher education institution would do nothing without the students themselves. So I think if we want to work with young people like yourselves, of course, we will have to work with the higher education institutions, and especially in Indonesia. And also to kind of, together with the institutions, we want to create an environment that will be much more welcoming and inclusive for students to take actions. Sometimes, higher education institutions being a little bit in the ivory tower in the education sector, tends to only see students as people who come to just learn from their professors. But, I think this is where the mental shift has to happen also within the higher education systems, that we have to also see that students are assets, it's inputs to higher education institutes' own research and teaching. The professors, academics can also learn from a lot from you, all by undertaking direct research, which maybe the professors, your teachers may not think about, because you're younger generation, you have different perspectives on the society you see today and the future you look at, which will be probably different from a professor who may be about my age, right? So I think this is where we want to see some better collaboration. Of course, all universities do not have the resources needed. So this is where I think the partnership with Tanoto Foundation like yourselves also makes a big added value to it. But at the same time, we should all collectively advocate for more investment in higher education institutions to do better research, quality research, engaging young people in that process. And one area is also to try to get more private sectors involved in supporting public higher education as well.
I would like to outline something that Ibu Maki mentioned, very important. I mean, everybody has to be on the same level, sitting on the same table. So nobody should sit in the ivory tower, as you said. And to build the whole ecosystem, it's the UN agencies, it's the government, also higher education institution, as well as private sectors, right? So partnership is very important. From partnership, let's move to mentorship. One of my favorite subjects in leadership. So mentorship is very crucial for the development of young researchers. I actually took one sentence, quoting one sentence from UNESCO report on mentorship. So let me read this one sentence. It says, mentorship fosters academic growth, critical thinking, and ethical research practice, and all crucial for producing impactful work. I think that's very profound. Right? So then the question is, what role does mentorship play in fostering the growth and development of young researchers? Then the follow-up question is, what initiative has UNESCO set up to connect these young researchers with the experienced mentors?
Well, mentorship plays a very critical role, of course, in the growth and development of young researchers. Young people, of course, in the beginning of their career, especially in the research field, would need guidance and support, and in order to pursue and achieve their dreams, and of course hear more practically the research work you're doing. And it can be really powerful in helping the young people to achieve their dreams. Now, mentorship is also not only between those already have knowledge and those are not. Mentorship can also happen between peers as well, right? Because you come with different experiences, different knowledge, different interests, and different ambitions. And I think mentorship can, work both ways, vertically as well as horizontally. And the horizontal part is probably more important today because this is actually going to strengthen your networking system across. We need mentorship that is not bilateral, but we need to have a very holistic mentorship, I would say environment today as much as possible, given that, people, and all of us come from very different areas and with different experiences, and these are very valuable to share as much as possible. So I think the YAR-TSRA, the program really helped us to do that mentorship more systematically as well as a program. And we want to see that this could be replicated more beyond the program as well. Students have, through mentorship, of course, students receive a lot of benefits as well. They receive multiple guidance, from different stakeholders. And also they get feedback also on the academic writing as more policy-related research work as well. So this has been a very comprehensive mentorship program that we have been realizing over the last year.
I think that's very clear, right? I like what you said. Mentorship should go to all direction, vertical, horizontal, any directions. Peer mentorship would also do. And we actually heard a lot from our Tanoto scholars that, pairing the mentor with academic advisors in this, for each group throughout the program has been very beneficial. And I'm sure the young researchers here would greatly benefit from the guidance and their experiences as well. So on that, I have two follow-up questions, Maki. So the first is, why the youth perspective is essential to improve research? And then, how does UNESCO ensure that the work they do address societal needs and contributes to the big SDGs?
Yes. Why do we need to bring in research? What is the importance of research, especially for young people, and why do we need to improve research skills? Well, research is not only an academic exercise. I think that's one thing that we would like to really convey, right? Research, more broadly speaking, will probably follow you everywhere you go in your life, from beyond your academic study and beyond. You will have to research, maybe the issues around your community. Maybe you want to research something of your own interest. It could be anything from a hobby to more political interest. It could be about the environment. But research can also help you to broaden the horizon on understanding the world, and also, I would say, trigger more interest into various issues that will come out from the one research will bring to another research interest. Because I think young people like yourself, as the future leaders, will probably need more knowledge and more information than we do, probably, even because history goes on. It accumulates. And I used to remember that I used to complain to my mother that I have to learn more than you do because I live, I have to learn all the history that you lived in, which you did not have to study, but I have to study as history, right? So you have more things to learn, unfortunately, but research will help you because you don't have to memorize everything. When you need to gain knowledge, you go and do your research. The YAR and TSRA, I believe, is not only about doing research per se. It's about learning the methodology of research and how to apply your research skills and how to interpret the research findings and how to see that research findings can really benefit yourselves, the society, and also those who also provided the information for you to carry out the research. So I think in that way, research is very important. I think the higher education institutions also have a very critical responsibility to nurture a new generation of researchers. And for that, we also have to make sure that your, academic, your supervisors will work together with you closely in this process. Now, UNESCO, we have been, of course, our work, of course, is generally guided by the SDGs today. Since 2015, everything that we do as a UN agency, our work is defined and guided by the principles of SDGs. Of course, UNESCO doesn't cover all the 17 goals directly necessarily. There are certain goals that are more directly, under UNESCO's mandate, that education or science or, ethical issues and so on, or even legal institution or peaceful institution and so on. But not necessarily, we don't really work, I would say, on consumptions, sustainable consumption is not really UNESCO's area, but we are actually working a lot. But we want to see the young people, through young people's lens, that all the 17 goals are addressed. So in a way, UNESCO will end up addressing all the SDGs through working with young people, which is our global priority.
Thank you. So it's very clear. Research is not only academic exercise. It's a lot more than that. It helps us to sharpen our critical thinking, being ethical and all that. So talking about SDG, I can share that we at Tanoto Foundations, one of our key focuses on SDGs is on SDG 4, quality educations. So all of our work in Tanoto Foundations is actually based on the belief that quality education accelerates equal opportunities. We also believe that young people are the leaders of the future. This is what is written on your t-shirt. But not only that, young people are also the change makers of today. But then they do face many challenges to be the future leaders, to be change makers of today. So including young researchers, they face many challenges that can hold them back. So in your view, Maki, what are some of the biggest obstacles they face, and how can UNESCO help them to overcome these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, many challenges. Definitely challenges. Yeah, many challenges. Of course, one is, very clearly financial resources. We cannot really do research completely without funding. Of course, there's a lot you can do without actual cash, but there is limitations if you want to go to the field and, collect data from, the local communities, which will be an important evidence base for you to establish, your, hypothesis and, research, affirming and confirming your research findings. But I think it's not just about the money. There's a lot of, challenges when it comes to infrastructure, for example. I think, in many countries that we work with, especially UNESCO Jakarta works with other countries as well, like Philippines, Malaysia, Timor-Leste in particular. Education institutions are not necessarily the priority for like internet connection. When it comes to technological infrastructure, education sector may not be the priority for both public and private sectors. So this is where UNESCO is really strongly advocating. Let's put, at a minimum, let's get, infrastructure set fully for education sector, including higher education, which will facilitate many young researchers to be able to access the resources that are now available online. I think there are many resources that are available free access. You can access them free. UNESCO promotes a system called the Open Educational Resources, where academia, schools, and young researchers like yourselves will have access free of charge in most cases to the top high-notch research that is taking place around the world today. So these are kind of platforms that we try to offer to young researchers without too much cost. But of course, there needs to be some basic support from the public sector in the countries to allow you to access the materials like infrastructure, which UNESCO may not be able to provide the support. Yeah. But then, of course, other evidence. I think one of the ways to really help the research community, the young research communities in Indonesia with the young researchers, is to bring you together and network, not only within the country, but also with the neighboring countries and even beyond, beyond Asia. I think, having networking across the different young researchers will help you to really enhance the quality of a research. You could also, learn from one another, have more realization of the different challenges, development issues that you're facing and maybe another country may be facing. And this is how UNESCO tries to work through our UNESCO strategy for the young people and facilitate, even with its lack and limited resources. I hope that this will help even a little bit in a modest way that the young people can continue their research.
So that grants, funding, as you mentioned, resources, network, can amplify and hear and value your youth voices in research field, right? Thank you so much for your outstanding work in the field of empowering young researchers in Indonesia particularly. Now it's time to turn to the audience. It's your turn to engage. Okay, so the first question is, what advice would you give to young people like yourself who are interested in pursuing a career in research? How can they find inspiration and motivations to make a difference? That's a very powerful question.
Well, first of all, I think it's already commendable that you are interested in pursuing a career in research. It's not the easiest profession, I would say. Somebody who has been, studying for many years and now working more, in the UN system, it's more, I would say, more bureaucratic. I don't necessarily work directly in research myself anymore, but I'm a user of great research work that is being carried out around the world. So I think one of the inspiration and motivation, of course, research, you do research because you may have your personal interest in a topic, but also you need to believe in the power of research that could really change the world by impacting policies, contributing data, evidence, information to institutions like ourselves, like the UN, which can build on your research evidence to guide and provide advice to the government, for example. Because sometimes I think for UNESCO, we would like to be your kind of middleman between the young researchers and the government, which is not always easy for young people to directly access. However, of course, the ultimate goal is for the young people to directly voice their views to the government and the leader of the countries to make change, the change happen. But I think whoever is interested in pursuing a career in research is quite courageous, not because it's difficult, due to the challenges that we were, sharing earlier, but the keeping your interest in one topic and going deep can also be quite, sometimes it could be quite, I would say, how to say this? I wouldn't say depressing, but quite, it could be a nightmare sometimes. For those who have already pursuing their PhDs, for example, you can see the spiral of, thinking that never ends, seems to be never ending. But I think that's also what we are as human beings, As human beings, that is what we come with, the curiosity, the interest in the things, that we want to know what we don't know today. To be able to pass on the knowledge to the next generation is the reason why we want to do research. And as I said, research is not only about academic research, but there could be a lot of action-related research. Teachers also should do research to be able to help them better teach, better facilitate the learning that is happening in the classroom. So I guess, I commend those who really want to become research careers, but also don't limit yourself as like a academic researcher, but be a researcher in any aspects of work that you will pursuing after your student life.
I think that answer is very inspiring, Maki. Thank you for that. And if I can share from Tanoto Foundation perspective, as you said, this is the second year. So why are we interested and even strengthen the collaborations? Because it's amazing for us to see how this collaboration has brought the global initiative closer to home, Indonesia, and how this global initiative have been translated into local actions. And many of you actually make a difference in your own communities. To me, that's inspiring and motivating for us to continue the work with you.
Thank you.
So let's move to the second questions. Beyond funding, we mentioned about the funding before. What systemic changes are necessary to enhance the research infrastructure for young Indonesian researchers, especially in the regions with limited sources?
Well, this question is actually a bit more difficult for me to answer, to be honest, because I am not really so knowledgeable of the research environment, especially in higher education institutions in Indonesia yet. Each country has their own research network, their academia, academic societies. When it comes to beyond funding, there's also the network of researchers in the countries. Not just students. I mean, we are good at, networking young researchers, but not necessarily the researchers as, professors in university. Oh, this is getting very heavy. And so it's a little bit difficult for me to give any precise suggestions, but I always think that money is only one part of the solution to anything. I think today we have many means to solve a problem without necessarily having the cash at hand right away. No complaints if I have more money, of course. UNESCO is always struggling with limited funding, but we always find creative ways how to manage the reach to our partners, how to provide our support that could be possible. I think as young people, what I would like to see is how do you communicate among yourselves? How do you exchange your experiences? How do you share your knowledge and information? That would be one system that could be put in place more rigorously. And you as, the catalyst of this young people's network should also be the ones to be proposing that to your institutions. So don't wait for your, professors or your, faculty dean to suggest we should do this and that. It has to come from you guys. The young people have to speak up and see this is how we want to change our research environment in my institution, in my community, so that we can do proper research. Now, funding is always a very difficult part. However, if you do propose something that is very innovative, That's something that nobody else has thought about, but it will have direct or indirect impact on the current development state situation. I'm sure somebody will be coming forward to provide support financially as well as technically. So please also do not give up. I think persistence is also important in research, as well as resilience, because you have to do your research. But persistence and commitment are two important points when one becomes a researcher.
I think that's very important. Funding is not the only showstopper. Right? As you said, persistent, being committed, and being resilient. And you mentioned something important, the network is a must. So thank you again, Maki, for this very insightful discussions. So as we wrap up this episode, a big thank you to UNESCO and Ibu Maki Katsuno-Hayashikawa for sharing these very valuable insights in empowering young researchers as well as in the shaping leaders of the futures. So the last note is today's discussion highlights how, with the right resources, mentorship, and opportunities, young researchers can transform society and reshape our world. We hope it has inspired your own journey. And then this has been another episode of Tanoto Foundation's Unlocking Potential podcast series. So subscribe for more inspiring stories in our YouTube channel. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Mr. Maki.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.